All right, we are back with another Prosper in the Kingdom. Welcome, Wendy Lee. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Happy Tuesday.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know, right? Two for Tuesday. We're running a 2 hour. No, I'm kidding. We're not doing 2 hours. I don't know that I could talk for 2 hours. But we've got an exciting topic today. We're going to be talking about God's blueprint for health, wealth, and wisdom. And do us a favor before we get started in there. If you just give us a little love and click that like button and, share it with a friend or two, that would be great. What would be even better is if you click that subscribe button, and that really helps us kind of spread the word of what we're doing here, trying to teach you, again, how to become healthy, wealthy, and wise. And that's really what we're talking about today. We're going to actually start a full series. I know we talked about it, Wendy. I'm a little excited about this. This is going to be awesome. We're actually going to do a through the month of May, kind of different topics around getting healthier, getting wealthier, and that biblical wisdom that kind of ties it all together for you, the listener, the viewer, right? So what are your thoughts, Wendy?
Yeah. Well, I think, people need a reset. Maybe we need a reset. I know I can always take time to kind of readjust my thinking and evaluate what I've got going on in life. And we talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of Christians that are struggling still with financial stress and debt and, a scarcity mindset.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think too,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
That scarcity mindset, just really thinking that I'm just here for one purpose and not believing bigger or believing that wealth is for other people.
Yeah. People listen to the enemy in their head, tell them that, oh, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. Why would they, listen to you? Or why would you think you could, get that job? Or, why do you think that person would date you? And so we limit ourselves out of fear, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time on. But I like that reset concept, really looking at the kingdom wealth reset. And wealth doesn't deal just with money. It's with your entire life. I mean, you've got greatness inside of you, whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not. And I don't care where you're sitting at listening to this podcast today. It may have been just stolen from you through, negative words or negative, lifestyle, whatever the case may be, right? But know that you can always hit that reset button and start everything new right now. And so we're going to be talking about that today. Yeah. So why do we need that reset?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bible talks about stewardship, right? How to manage your resources wisely. I love, the parable of the talents. For those that want to look that up, it's really good.
One of my
story.
favorites. One of my favorites.
Matthew 25. And
I think if I can just interject on that, that parable of the talents too, it speaks to, I've run into a lot of Christians that really focus on that, the meek shall inherit the earth, and we're supposed to give everything away. Yeah. And that is not the case at all. You're taking biblical scripture out of context. He was specifically talking to Matthew on that because he was a rich tax collector and stuff like that. In the parable of the talents, it talks about, be safe and be frugal. No, he actually rewarded the person that went out there to, build wealth, right? And and entrusted him with even more, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I just wanted to interject that. So go ahead.
Yeah. Side note in line with that, we talk to people sometimes that are like, I don't trust the government. I don't trust this. I don't trust that. So I'm going to keep all my money in cash in my house. Right. And that's kind of like burying the talent. Right. Yeah. And talent's not just your money, right? It's also your resources. It's also your, the gifts God's given you. And so, anyway, so there's a lot to that we can dig into in another episode, but that kingdom health reset is really about aligning our money with God's priorities and not the world's system. So I think that's where we start.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing too. You look at it, it's not about, oh, I love money. This is not one of the, you have pastors out there talking about prosperity, Christianity, like God's going to give you everything, just manifest. I mean, there's a component of that, again, that's accurate, but taken in the whole, it's part of a bigger vision, right?
Well,
That
it's
God
about the
has for our
heart and
lives.
the motivation. It's, if your heart is to leverage the talents God's given you to generate wealth, to be able to be a blessing to others, that's very different than, hey, I'm going to give or do in order to get wealth from God. Totally different mindset.
Exactly. And I think that's really kind of the first step, right? Is acknowledging God's ownership in everything, right? God, and if you're not a Christian, I would encourage you, because I used to be that guy, right? And then I really started doing my research and my work and stuff like that, and realized, hey, I'm a believer now, so I've been baptized and everything else. But looking at whose is this really? Whose stuff is this? Well, it's not mine, even though I may have paid for it or whatever. It's not really mine. It's God's, right? And I'm entrusted to manage with it. And in the Bible, it talks about, if he trusts you with a little, and you do a little, then you're only going to get a little. If he can trust you with a lot and you're out there, being generous. We've talked about that in the past. Then all of a sudden, it's you're blessed with even more. He's expanding your territory, right? And looking at it, shifting that mindset from it's my money to God's resources that I've been entrusted with. I mean, that's a paradigm shift. I mean, it is. And it was a challenge for me too, going through it. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm the one out there working so hard. Well, it's God providing the opportunities and everything else. It's putting it in place, and I'm being a servant to God, and then carrying that through with, okay, I've been entrusted with this. Now I want to be generous. We've talked about the tithe before, right? What is it really? What isn't it? It's not a 10%, forced repayment program. I mean, there's a whole, watch that video, but it's good. But again, recognizing that God owns all. I'm just entrusted to manage it, if you will. And, again, turn around and help others in his kingdom and further the kingdom, and, go to make disciples of men and women. But it all boils down to becoming faithful stewards instead of, an anxious hoarder, like that, that guy from, what was that, Lord of the Rings or whatever, my precious, right? Where you're coveting money and hoarding it and not using it. Again, going back to your comment about the parable of the talents, right? Not turning around and growing it to further the kingdom, not to further you, to further the kingdom. Now you get to benefit from it a little bit, obviously, but again, so that's kind of that number one mind shift. And that's a big step for people. But once you make it and once you see it for what it is, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Just releasing control of it is, it's not mine, it's God's. But we have to be stewards. We can't just, sit back and, oh, God will take care of everything. No, he's given you the ability to create, the ability to use your talents and your gifts and all of that. So
and he's giving you those talents. Yeah.
Stewarding well is so important. So
and I love that you brought that up too, because I mean he's given you the talents, he's given you the ability to communicate, he's given you, and we all have our own gifts. Like some people are really good storytellers and really good with people. Okay, use that, right? Yeah. Some people are really, mechanically inclined, right? So use that. How can you use that? How can you use that gift again? But once you've taken that step, then you look at what's the next step. Then is looking at the kingdom priority. What are the priorities, right? So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So setting kingdom priorities. So, and we'll dig in a little bit more to this, but giving, saving, investing, eliminating your debt, and being conscious of your spending when it comes to kingdom priorities around your money, I think are key areas to focus on. And Proverbs 3:9 says, honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops, right? We can honor him. In fact, our pastor a couple of weeks ago was talking about what worship is. And worship is not coming into church and singing a song. Worship is the way that you live your life honoring God.
Yes, that was a powerful message.
Yeah. And that's what we need to focus on, honoring God with our money. I used to think that meant like giving it all away to my own detriment. You know what?
Yeah,
I used to think that.
And a lot of people do. You're not alone. Yeah. No, it's not at all. Go ahead.
It's listening to God and being thoughtful and prayerful, right, about what you're doing, getting wise counsel And yeah, so I mean, and a question that we can ask ourselves to kind of get our minds in those kingdom priorities, with just the basic day to day, are we spending our money in a way that reflects trust in God, or does it reflect fear or lack? And that's another thing. Like, you know, people talk about the love of money, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. People sometimes forget the part of that, but the love of money does not mean I have a ton of it, I want more of it, and I want to spend on myself. Sometimes the love of money is thinking that that's where your security lies, right? That when, you know, have you ever been in that place in your life? I know I have. Like, when I have this much money, I'll finally be able to relax or have peace or whatever. We don't get our peace from money. We get our peace from God. And so when we're prayerful and when we're, you know, honoring God with our lives, and here's the thing is there's an overflow. If you're not honoring God in your life in general and putting him first, then it's not going to show up in your finances either, right? It's got to be in all areas of your life that you're worshiping God. But spending in a way that reflects our trust in God, and not, you know, also means not being afraid of not having. That's kind of going back to that original thing we talked about of that scarcity mindset. You know, God owns it all. There's no lack in the kingdom, right? So trusting God to take care. And I've been high up here where I had, you know, lots of money in the bank, and you know, and I've been way down here. And I'll tell you, my way down here times sometimes are scary, but then when you give it over to God and say, I'm going to be okay, he's in control of everything, like there's a ton of peace.
And I think that's, and I think that's the lesson too that maybe he's trying to teach, right? When you start to focus too much on money, and you see, you know, people living in fear all the time, and fear is nothing more than false expectations appearing real in your mind, right? You're worried about something, not trusting in, you know, the Lord to kind of take care of you. And you look at that and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to stack a bunch of money in my bank account or in a shoebox or something like that, right? Because I'm afraid that the sky is going to fall. And don't get me wrong, there's being prepared for storms, events, and things like that. And then there's being afraid. You know, why are you doing it? Again, it goes back to what you said earlier about it's your heart. And, you know, you've heard me say it. If you listen to the show long enough, you've heard me say it as well to the viewers. You know, those purchases you're making, is this moving me closer to or further away from my financial goals? Well, this is the same kind of thing. Does your spending reflect your trust in God? Does it reflect fear? Or does it reflect a lack? Like you feel like you're missing something, which, you know, here in America, that's what we do a lot of, because we buy a bunch of crap on credit cards and things like that to feel good. And we do, you know, typically for a short period. And then we're like buyer's remorse, right? Say, oh, why did I buy that? Why did I do this? Well, you got caught up in the emotion, and there's a lot of emotional selling. And that's why it's so critical to really kind of set your mindset. You know, we talked about that. Set your goals on what do you want to accomplish. You know, what are your priorities? You know, how do you want to be seen? You know, what do you want to accomplish in this short period of time that you've been given on this plane we call Earth, right? And, you know, really kind of, okay, again, set your goals with the end in mind. Okay, you know, and somebody gave me a suggestion to write your obituary. You know, and it's morbid to think about, but, you know, what do you want your obituary to say? And write it as though that's who you were, even if it wasn't the case, and then start living in that direction. And it's really powerful. If you really take it honestly and do that, I would challenge our listeners to do that. It's really powerful to kind of start focusing on it, because do you want to be known as a, you know, stingy, miserly, you know, Ebenezer Scrooge type person, or somebody who is always, you know, happy, blessing others, not to their own detriment, like you said, but, you know, really kind of look at that. So how do you do it? I'm going to go right back to where, you know, step 3, and I've talked about this a bunch, is setting that, you know, budget in place, kind of controlling, where do I want to spend my money? I make X, where do I want to spend it, right? I like to call it, you like to call it a spending plan, because a budget seems so cringy, right? It's like, you know, that's no fun. Nobody wants to do a budget. No, it's a spending plan, because, you know, I want to make sure I have money to spend on others, myself, my family down the road when I stop working. But I'm going to spend some money today, right? But I want to make sure I'm not overspending to my detriment down the road. And, again, I want to be generous with that money, looking at tithing, however much that is, whether it's 20%, 1%, whatever God's leading you to do, that's what you should be doing, right? It's just, again, to kind of pay it forward in the kingdom.
Yep.
And, then we go into the stuff that you and I talk about, which is what?
Saving.
Yeah,
Investing.
Investing, yeah, not just saving in your bank account. That's what you say the word save, and people, my bank account sucks. Why would I save? Well, that's not where you're saving. I mean, and there are all kinds of accounts that are good. I just opened an account with, and I'm going to toot their horn again because I think they're pretty solid. Capital One, right? Bank. It's an online bank. If you're not in the Northeast, they've got a 4% or just under 4%. Check it. I'm not part of that, so just check it yourself. But it's like an almost 4% savings account, which, okay, 4% is not great, but there's a lot of whole life policies out there that's what they're paying, 4%, and they're trying to get you excited about it. So, you look at that, but you want to be generous. You want to be, and tithe and things like that. And one of the things I struggle with, just to be a little transparent, is, you see these people on the side of the road. It seems like they all have their own corner with their cardboard sign and they got their new shoes on, but yet they're begging. I've become jaded on that. And so, it's like, okay, are they just scamming people or whatever? And I'm struggling with that. I donate. I'm generous with my money. I give to, charities and things like that. But that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out. Okay, is God putting that there as, hey, Jon, I'm testing you. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I think that God will prompt your heart when you're supposed to give. I do it every once in a while because, where we are, there's somebody on every intersection. But and most of the time I don't give because I know, a lot of it goes to alcohol or drugs or whatever. But you
don't want to enable them. Yeah.
Right. But there was, a lady in Nashville. I was in Nashville a few weeks ago. And I don't know, in just that moment, I had a couple bucks cash sitting right next to me and I saw her and I'm like, it's not going to hurt me to give her a few dollars. Yeah. Right. And so Malachi was with me. I'm like, hey, roll down the window and give her this, and it made Malachi feel good too. He loves to give, but then there's most of the time I don't feel pulled. I'll say a little prayer for them in my own heart, when I pass by. But I will tell you that one time God kind of prompted my heart to give to somebody on the side of the road, but I was kind of like where it would have been inconvenient to pull over. And I just kept going. And the whole drive home, I felt like convicted. Yeah. And so I would just say that's a personal thing to listen to God and let him guide you.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. But, again, so we've got, being generous and tithing, kind of giving back, right? Paying it forward in the kingdom. And then, setting your own house in order with, creating an emergency fund, saving money for, that piece, creating an investment account. Because in the Bible, it talks about you are responsible for your family, not just your immediate family, not just you, your spouse, and your kids, but your extended family. I'm talking, parents, sisters, siblings, things like that, to be there for them in the case they need it. And a lot of people don't realize that. Look it up. I'm trying to get you to go into your Bible, right? It's the truth. Call me out on it if you don't see it. Go to, Bible.com and Google it. Don't go to Google, go to Bible.com. But, and then, that spending plan really helps you live on the rest, being intentional with the money. I want to make sure I'm saving. I want to make sure I'm tithing, and then living on the rest. And if you follow that, you're going to have a solid life. You may not be showered with riches, but you will be taken care of, and the Bible talks a lot about that too. But, you look at, okay, I want to live, don't overspend, because that's a trap, right? You fall into debt again, and we all get, I was there. I had $60,000 in debt at one point in my life. And that was just, unsecured debt. That wasn't the car and the house. I was just like, what the heck did I do? Got out of it. Somebody taught me about the debt snowball, and I took advantage of that. And now I teach that to others. But, it's all about planning, right? And Proverbs 21:5 talks about the plans of the diligent lead to profit, surely as haste leads to poverty, right? So and that's what I'm saying. If you're not working with a financial planner, reach out to us. We've got people that we can introduce you to that are standing by, ready to help you with a free financial plan. That's part of the arrangement we have. do something with it or not, but at least get the free plan, right?
Yep.
But,
Yep.
that's where it all comes into, getting help, reading my Bible. What does the Bible say about this? And, the more we spend time with you, our viewers, our listeners, we're going to have more and more resources for you to tap into. So make sure you take advantage of that as well. Yeah. So what do we do, Wendy? What's our call to action?
Yeah. Well, I would say, think about a money habit that you need to reset this year. And we'd actually love for you to be vulnerable and share it in the comments, whether you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening to it on podcast. I don't think there's a way to do that, but come to our Facebook page, Prosper in the Kingdom, and drop in the comments, like, what's something that you need to reset? What's a money habit that you have that you need to give over to God, right? Like, I know people, in my life that are like, that's the retail therapy they talk about, right? Spending money to feel better. And that might be something you got to go, okay, instead of spending money, I'm going to turn to God and I'm going to turn to prayer,
Yeah.
But find that one money habit. And then also, I want to encourage you guys, stick with us for the next 12 weeks. We're going to break down God's principles for financial success and, wise decision-making and even healthy living, right? Because that's a part of it. Yeah. I'm learning more and more. The body is a temple, and we should honor God with our bodies as well.
Yeah. And that's, again, going back to your gifts that God has given you, right? Mm-hmm. The body, and that's why we're talking about health as well. It's healthy, wealthy, wise. And, going into this 12-week series, I'm really excited about it. And I would encourage you to, if you're jumping in late, to go back and, catch the other steps along the way. We'll talk about it in the intro each time. But next week we're going to start with, item number 1, wealth mistakes Christians make, right? The number 1 wealth mistakes that Christians make. So we'll be doing a little bit of a deep dive on all this stuff. So hopefully you can learn from it. As always, it's been awesome to share this time with you, and I really hope you're getting a lot out of it. We'd love to hear your posts and comments, and let us know, like Wendy said, if you're in for the journey on this 12-week study, jump in, be vulnerable, and let's come through this together as brothers and sisters in Christ. And I'm excited, and thanks again for listening to Prosper in the Kingdom. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give us a little like, a thumbs up. And we'll see you next week, next Tuesday, for another Prosper in the Kingdom. Thanks, everybody.